Here are lottery winners who went completely broke. Number 9. David Lee Edwards. Can you guys imagine being on both ends of life? A life where you've been in jail, but where also you flew in a private plane between your homes. Well, that basically describes David Lee Edwards, a convicted felon from Ashland, Kentucky, who won a $27 million lottery jackpot back in August 2001. But his ridiculous free spending ways left him and his wife broke, and living in a storage unit within just 5 years of winning $27 million. If you're wondering just how someone can blow $27 million in 5 years, you're definitely not alone. Let's do some really quick math here. In his first year as a millionaire, Edwards spent $12 million. Someone didn't do their math right. So yeah, there goes almost half of his money right there. Edwards bought a $1.6 million, 6,000 square foot house in a private tennis and golf community in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. He spent $600,000 on another home nearby. He paid $1.9 million for a Learjet, bought 3 losing racehorses, and bought a fiber optics installation company and a limo business for $4.5 million. I'm gonna guess he probably didn't exactly do the discounted cash flows for those acquisitions. Oh yeah, he also bought his daughter a $35,000 Hummer golf cart to drive around because she couldn't exactly drive at the time. At one point, he had $1 million in vehicles parked in front of his house. His neighbors complained that his house in the upscale community started to look like a car dealership. You guys know the end. Because of his reckless YOLO spending, he lost every last penny of his $27 million fortune and died owing thousands of dollars to friends. Number 8. CALLIE Rogers. CALLIE Rogers was just a 16-year-old kid living in foster care when she won 1.9 million pounds in the lottery in 2003. As you guys can expect, her spending spree began pretty much immediately. CALLIE forked out 11,500 pounds on not one, but 2 boob jobs, and 300,000 pounds on clothes, makeup, and tattoos. Well, at least she only spent 85,000 pounds on sports cars. But hold up, she did spend £250,000 on, nose candy. CALLIE spent an additional 250,000 pounds on vacations around the world. And get this, she also spent 118,000 pounds on gifts to her former boyfriends. I mean, who and what didn't she spend her money on? Basically, as expected, she spent all her money, and in 13 years, she just has around 2,000 pounds left in the bank. She actually called her win a curse, because she said that she felt the pressure of having to live it up, with the expectation of having a party lifestyle after winning the lottery. Mo money, mo problems, I guess, because she now lives with her 3 kids, and says she's happier than ever. Number 7. William Post. Way back in 1988, William Bud Post III was the winner of a Pennsylvania lottery jackpot worth $16.2 million. On the day he won the jackpot, he had just $2.46 in his bank account. I guess when you have that little money in your bank account, you tend to go a little overboard with $16 million. In the 2 weeks after Post collected the first of his 26 annual payments of almost $500,000, he spent more than $300,000 on gifts and investments. Those investments included things such as a liquor license, a lease for a restaurant in Florida, and a used car lot. He also bought an airplane to fly around in, even though he didn't have a pilot's license. Well, at least it wasn't a private jet. In just 3 months, his debts totaled $500,000. That's $1 million turnaround in the wrong direction. But listen to this story. I guess he and his brother weren't exactly on friendly terms, so his brother actually had it out for him. His brother actually hired someone to go after him and his 6th wife. However, his brother's plan failed and he was arrested. His intentions were to get Post's winnings as an inheritance. This pretty much kinda summed up the rest of the time for Post's payments. Each of the checks came just to pay off debts. And Post never actually was in the green, except the day he got his first check. By the end of his life, Post was $1 million in the red. Number 6. SHARON TIRABASSI. On Easter weekend back in April 2004, SHARON TIRABASSI, a 35-year-old resident of Hamilton, cashed a check from the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation for a little over 10.5 million Canadian dollars. Well, I'm just gonna make a long story short. She blew through the 10 mil in less than 10 years. She gave her parents $1 million and then split another $1.75 million between her 4 siblings. She then took friends on a wild, all-expenses-paid trip to Cancun, Florida, Las Vegas, California, and the Caribbean. Of course, she also bought cars: a Hummer, a Mustang, a Dodge Charger, and a custom Cadillac Escalade. She also bought houses and rented them out at a low rent for her friends. And she offered loans for things such as bail and business ventures. And obviously the money never came back. Although it doesn't seem like Sharon spent ridiculously, all that money adds up. Sharon never hired a financial advisor. She didn't even keep track of her account balance. Suddenly, with just $750,000 left, reality hit her hard, and she had to go back to real life. However, there is a silver lining. What remained of her winnings when reality hit is in a trust for her 6 children. That, and she actually didn't go into debt. Number 5. Gerald Muswagon. You guys still want to win the lottery? I have a feeling that winning the lottery and keeping the money is kinda like losing a lot of weight really quickly and then being able to keep the weight off. Gerald Muswagon won a nice even $10 million lottery jackpot back in 1998. Immediately after his win, he did as pretty much every lottery winner does, and he went on a spending spree. Does anyone not spend any of their money and just live normally for like a year or anything like that? I think it'd probably help to let things sink in for a little bit. Muswagon bought new cars for his family and friends, and he also bought a new house that he basically turned into a party house for him and his friends. Making sure his friends were happy seemed to be a big theme, because he supposedly also bought 8 brand new big screen TVs for his friends in a 24-hour period. He did try to start a profitable business in the logging industry, but unfortunately for Muswagon, sales were low and his business was really a liability. He also blew through the lottery winnings in only a few years. Unfortunately, in a tragic and sad turn, Muswagon couldn't take it anymore and ended everything in his parents' garage. Number 4. Vivian Nicholson. Way back in 1961, a British woman named Vivian Nicholson had the opportunity of a lifetime. Her husband Keith managed to win more than £3.5 million, a pretty big amount back then factoring in inflation. She told the press that her plans were to spend, and she wasn't kidding. For the next few years, she bought expensive cars, fur coats, vacations, and whatever else rich people buy. She lived a spectacular lifestyle that quickly caused her and her husband's fortune to dwindle. However, when her husband Keith passed in a car crash, she was left with an enormous tax bill. And on top of that, what remained of her husband's winnings belonged to his estate, not her. She actually became a Jehovah's Witness and wrote an autobiography entitled Spend, which was, of course, about her experience. Somehow, it was later adapted into a musical. Number 3. Billy Bob Harrell Jr. It took Texas native Billy Bob Harrell Jr. less than 2 years to undo the good fortune that came with winning $31 million from the lottery. In his case, he was just way too nice. After taking his family on vacation, he quit his job at Home Depot, gave money to his church, bought cars and homes for his friends and family, and gave away lots of money to charities. For example, he once donated close to 500 turkeys for poor families for Thanksgiving. However big his heart was, his ability to manage his wealth wasn't all that great. You guys starting to notice a theme here? It seems that the trick is not to change your lifestyle at all, or at least wait a few months to really let things sink in. Anyways, he decided to take a bad deal with the company who paid him a lump sum in exchange for his annual payouts from the lottery. He was obviously left with far less money than he actually won, and it only took 20 months for Billy Bob to blow through all the money. According to Time magazine, he once told a financial advisor that winning the lottery was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Number 2. Michael Carroll. In 2002, when 19-year-old Michael Carroll won the UK National Lottery, he became something of a mini celebrity. Carroll won close to £10 million, or just over $14 million US. Carroll was working as a garbage collector for a living when he won the lottery, and Carroll didn't even have a bank account at the time. so obviously he had no clue about handling any sort of finance whatsoever. But, like a lot of lottery winners, Carroll claimed he planned to spend his money wisely and save most of it. Spoiler alert, obviously that didn't happen. Instead, Carroll became renowned for his partying and gambling habits. Now it's worth noting that he already had a criminal record when he won, and he was actually wearing an ankle monitor when he collected his check. Carroll went on and bought a mansion, one he named The Grange, where he threw crazy parties that I'm sure the neighbors loved. Oh yeah, he would also hold amateur demolition derbies in his backyard. By 2012, he had spent all of his money, was broke, and camping out in the woods. If there's some sort of silver lining to somehow blowing through a $14 million fortune, he was able to drop his drug habit after losing all his money. He ended up working at a cookie factory, making $300 a week. He told the BBC that he appreciated those wages much more than the fortune he won. This dude lost all his money, but gained some perspective, so that counts for something, I guess. But the last time I checked, perspective doesn't pay any bills. Number 1. Andrew Jackson Whittaker Jr. In 2002, Andrew Jackson Whittaker Jr. won the Powerball, worth a ridiculous amount of money. In fact, at the time, Whittaker's ticket was the largest single winner in the history of the U.S. lottery. After taking the lump sum and taxes from the almost $315 million jackpot, Whittaker Jr. was left with $113 million, give or take a few $100,000. Whittaker pledged 10% of his winnings to Christian charities, and he also set up the Jack Whittaker Foundation. So there's $14 million right there. Okay, let's get to the dumb stuff. While visiting a strip club, he left $545,000 in cash in his car. Who are you, Floyd Mayweather? At least Mayweather has reoccurring cash flows. Obviously, his car got broken into, and the money was gone. So that's over $500,000 gone right there. Apparently, he didn't learn his lesson, because months later, his car was broken into again, and thieves made off with $200,000 in cash. Sadly, things only got worse. He would go on to develop a bit of a gambling habit. He bounced a $1.5 million check at a casino in Atlantic City, and just as icing on the cake, his home caught on fire in December of 2016. It turned out that he had never insured the home, so it was a total loss. Seriously, no insurance. However, Whittaker actually was already a millionaire when he won. Maybe that's why there actually really aren't reports of him broke. However, with all the crazy things that's happened to Whittaker, it may just be a toss-up. Here's what's next.
£1 million richer. That's exactly what happened to Peter Lavery back in May of 1998. Lavery is a former bus driver from Belfast, which is in the United Kingdom, by the way. He says he's been lucky his whole life, escaping bombs and avoiding robbery while